my issue with the messaging side was that I wanted it to be all encompassing. I felt it needed to capture all of it together for the story to make sense. But they're a little bit tangential, right? Just like a lot of products are. And I was so stuck on that the phrase we almost went with was UserEvidence is an evidence-based content platform. And I'm sure a lot of people are just like, ooh.
Hey everyone, welcome to On Messaging, a show for B2B product marketers on how to create messaging that resonates with your audience. I'm your host, Josh Chronister, and on the show today we have Alex Eaton, the Director of Product Marketing at UserEvidence. Before joining UserEvidence, Alex worked in product marketing at Help Scout and Lessonly. During our conversation, you'll learn the 3 traits that separate great product marketers from good ones, how Alex avoided a near messaging disaster at UserEvidence, a tactical breakdown of messaging docs that get read and why yours should be under 2 pages, how to enable sales without being the messaging cop, and so much more. If you enjoy the podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it on your favorite podcast app, YouTube, or Substack. It's the best way to get notified of every new episode. All right, let's jump into the conversation. Alex, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was super excited for this conversation. I've been looking forward to it for quite some time now. And I was looking a little bit at your background. You've had a pretty linear path in your career for product marketing. And that's not, I feel like, typical for a product marketing role. A lot of time you see people going from, I don't know, content marketing or customer marketing or digital marketing, and then they jump into product marketing. But you know, you went from, I think, specialist and then to manager, senior manager, product marketing lead, and now you're the product marketing director at UserEvidence. But based off that path, I kind of wanted to get your opinion on something and see what separates a good product marketer from a great one based off your experience.
Yeah, it's actually a really hard question for me because we can do so many things. There are so many different ways for a product marketer to be great that like it's tough to choose one, because you could be an incredible creative marketer, copywriter, and be extremely effective, right, with messaging in that way. Or you could be an ex-salesperson and be brilliant at getting in one-on-one with salespeople on deals and brilliant that way. Or you could just be a really good leader and able to like rally people behind you. So it is tough in that way. There's a few things that come to mind though, I guess, just at a higher level for what can make people great, no matter what their like specialty within it might be, or their skills. And like execution is one of just being able to do and actually like push stuff across the line. Product marketing dies when you end up becoming just a project manager. And I think you need to go beyond that. And execution is a part of going beyond project management, because you're showing that you actually can deliver, right? So that's really big for me. That interpersonal rallying people behind them is also really important, because I think it is completely a must-have for product marketers. You must be able to figure out how to work with other people and very different personality types across departments. Just take product and sales as the easiest example. Sometimes completely opposite personality types, and you need to be able to nail it with both types of people. So that one's really important as well. And then the final one is just rigor. And like business acumen has been coming to my mind in this lately, of just like being able to see it. But below that, I really think it is rigor of like, I think we can tell when we're doing stuff on a surface level. Like when you write messaging or when you produce something and you're like, you just have that kind of gut feeling of, I don't really feel like I nailed this, or I feel like I didn't do enough to like know that I'm there. And I think there is a point where you actually get through that by getting involved, right? Whether it's on sales calls, whether it's actually talking to your customers or whatever it might be. So those are a few different areas that come to mind first for me, separating the goods from the greats. But it is hard because we do so many different things. I think you could be great by being great at one thing, honestly, in product marketing. Like if you're good enough, you can do it. But most of us are pretty generalist, especially in the startup world. So that's why those higher level pieces come to mind first for me.
I love those. Those are great. All right, so we have execution, we have getting people to rally behind you, and then rigor. I had a follow-up question related to the rally behind. And I know a lot of people do this in a different way, but is there something that comes to mind of how you can get multiple teams to really rally behind you as the product marketer?
There's the not great answer that's the truth, which is like getting people to like you. Honestly,
It's so true.
people don't want that to be something you need. And it's not about the like, I want people to like me, like the judgment thing, right? That we all worry about every day of what do people think of me. But you have to be someone that people enjoy working with and want to work with and like see the value in working with you. That is more of what I'm talking about with like getting people to like you. People aren't dreading you coming into the meetings or getting involved in a project. That's kind of the base level step one that I think is underrated in terms of importance. And that's just up to your ability to like get to know people and like what do they care about and how does that relate to what you're doing and how are you going to help them. So that is kind of the base level piece for me on like getting people to rally behind you is just like be a person that's easy to rally behind from like a personal level. And then from there it's internal selling, right? Like you need to know how to make your case just like a salesperson would to a prospect. So that is using the data to back up your claims or a change you want to make. That's being comfortable going to leadership, whether it's your boss or the actual C-level group, and presenting your case and defending it. That's kind of the hard skills behind that are necessary for any type of leadership work, right? But yeah, there's kind of two facets of that where there is like a personal between people part of it, but then there's also just like you got to know how to sell your ideas.
Yeah. Oh, those are good. That's good. So I love the rigor one too, just getting involved, getting your hands dirty. I feel like that's definitely prevalent in the startup world. Like you have to be I just had a conversation yesterday about how the importance of speaking to customers. Like you have to do that to get your messaging dialed in, because otherwise, especially if you're marketing a technical product, you're just shooting in the wind. Like you're just making assumptions based. I mean, you can do research, you can do those things and talk to the sales team, talk to the product team and get a general idea of what's important, what's going to move the needle. But unless you're having that conversation with a customer or a prospect, it's going to be really hard to find that headline that really nails it when someone comes to the homepage or whatever they're looking at.
Yeah. And I do feel deep down that like you know it as a product marketer when you're there or not. There is that like gut tension feeling you have when you're like, I'm kind of just making a deduction here and like hoping it's right or in the right direction versus like, I know this is real. And also I can listen to a sales call or hop on and do it myself or give very specific feedback about this specific thing the salesperson said to them and have them respect it because I'm confident that like I know what I'm talking about and I'm seeing it work in action. So, but I really do feel like there is like an almost anxiety you feel when you're not there internally.
I felt that.
I felt it before too, like 100%.
And then the execution piece. I know, it's like getting past that project management because, we know the new product launch or new feature launch, that can be a lot of project management, but unless you're actually kind of in the weeds and doing some of the work there, you're not really a product marketer. You're just you could just be a project manager, like they have at very large enterprise businesses that are just, there's a project manager on the marketing team and they help make sure everything gets done. But, that product marketing side is like, you're really digging into it, writing sometimes writing the copy, creating the content or influencing the content.
Yeah, for sure.
All the knowledge you have.
For sure. And like, I love strategy. I really enjoy that part of product marketing. It's cool to see every side of the business and connect those dots and like be the person to be able to think about that and in those conversations. But at the end of the day, especially in a smaller company, it's all about how you deliver. Like strategy does nothing. It's just an idea if you aren't actually putting stuff out. So at this point, I have had a hand in almost every single word on the core pages of our website and almost every single word on our sales deck, right? Like I am there throughout all of that and then I now have the feedback of like, okay, now what's happening based on that? And I'm directly involved in it. But yeah, it's you have to do for any of it to work. And like, it's easy to want to fall back into strategy and to like be an idea person. But yeah, if you're in a younger company, the more you can test is like, that's the rigor part. That's what feeds into rigor, right?
Yeah.
And it'll just make you better every time.
Yeah, they definitely tie together really well. So let's get into user evidence and your role there a little bit. So I know you were the first product marketing hire at User Evidence, and I know one of the questions I wanted to ask you was around your process for creating the messaging, especially from the start at User Evidence. And then you kind of chimed in about having a story of the way that you almost destroyed the messaging. But let's hear about it.
Yeah, I almost made it terrible. Luckily, we did not. I was lucky in a way. So I was the second marketing hire at User Evidence behind Mark Huber, our VP. And he knows product marketing well. Huge bonus for me. He gets it and also laid a lot of good foundation, and things were trending in the right direction in a lot of key areas for me to be able to take it and run with like finalizing, revamping the messaging. But it started with like understanding the product and what we called ourselves at a very base level for where we wanted to go. So at the time, we were a customer voice platform is what we had called ourselves. And with where we're going with the product and what we focus on with customer evidence and things like that, when you think of customer voice, you think of a lot more back end, right? It could be product teams who are trying to get insights from the customers to help influence the product roadmap, right?
Yeah.
Or product marketers trying to do that, but it's more insights based specifically. Whereas a lot of what we're trying to do in this phase of the company is based on actually tangible customer evidence that you can use in the go-to-market motion. And we sell into marketers. So we saw that mismatch in what we're calling ourselves and in what inbound leads were coming in. And that was kind of the baseline for where things needed to change of what we call ourselves. And then from there, build into all the other assets. So we knew we wanted to focus on marketers. And we knew that that wasn't a match with the roadmap moving forwards. So my issue with that to start was that I was stuck on this aspect of these new products we were launching as well. We launched alongside our platform, we launched research offerings, which are long form reports. We have one that's called research content. I launched in my first couple of months here. And that is thought leadership reports, data backed. We interview and survey practitioners around high-level thought leadership problems in your space and create thought leadership content around it for customers. And then we also have ROI studies, which is long-form, creating an ROI model, interviewing and surveying customers to figure out what your actual business value is. No, it's different necessarily from our platform. And my issue with the messaging side was that I wanted it to be all-encompassing. I felt it needed to capture all of it together for the story to make sense. But they're a little bit tangential, right? Just like a lot of products are. Yeah. And I was so stuck on that the phrase we almost went with was User Evidence is an evidence-based content platform. And I'm sure a lot of people are just like, ooh, when I say that, because it's wordy, right? It's jumbly. It's not really something that you latch onto right away. Yeah. And we had gone through the work, like I had road tested this thing. I'd gone into events and talked to product marketers and kind of pitched the name and gotten a very meh response. But for me, like customer evidence and these research offerings, it is all technically evidence-based content, right? It's things that are verified that can back you up. It's the content you create so it all kind of fits in that world, but it isn't good. And then I had a chat with Mark because there was like a tension, right? I mentioned that like gut tension earlier. Like you just kind of felt it wasn't right, even though we were struggling to come up with a better idea. And customer evidence had been a word we used still before that. But obviously customer evidence has nothing to do with a research-backed thought leadership report that's not from your customers, right? So that's why I just, And I had a good conversation with Mark talking through the challenges of it, and he had a good question posed of just like, well, why does it need to be all encompassing, right? Like, is that truly what it has to be? And that kind of just like honesty and like, let's take a step back for a second and ask like, are we forcing ourselves into a hole that we don't need to force ourselves into? That helped really pull me out of it. And like, oh, the answer was super simple. Like, yeah, it's customer evidence platform. And for us, it's, that's slightly new customer evidence isn't the term people have usually always said for customer stories and ROI staff testimonials and things, but it's familiar enough that people still get it, right? Yeah. It's easy enough that it's kind of a step forward without trying to create a whole new category, which we weren't trying to do. So that was a good moment for me just to realize that you don't have to force everything into like the box you think in your head. And it freed up a lot and made it so much easier on us. And we've worked on the story to bring the research offerings in, and how does that fit in with what we help you do, as a software platform. And that's been going well, but that was a huge moment for just kind of like the base understanding, and also for me is approaching messaging and learning that it did not need to be one size fits all. And then from there, once we got that down, you get going on all the outputs. And we knew we wanted to target marketers, and we have specific roles within marketing we target. And so we're working on focusing more towards those specific persona versus just anyone in marketing. And then, of course, all the outputs, right? The execution. So created a new messaging doc, focusing and reframing a lot of our core website pages. So we redid the homepage. We worked with Fletch, the consultancy, on that, and that was a cool experience. Product page, some of our persona pages, created a brand new sales deck last year, along with the new name. So we did all of those things to kind of execute on that core idea, and of course the messaging doc and the training and all of that. And then we have tried to take it a step further by covering more than just those typical product marketing assets. So we came out with our evidence gap report, right, which is kind of our way to do research on the problem itself around customer evidence and what we're solving, and to show that there is a problem there based on what people are actually saying in the market. So we're trying to create the continuity by owning the problem and owning the solution. I think that's where marketing gets really powerful, if you can connect all that together. Yeah. We did all that foundational work, and now my phrase that we've been using for planning the next couple quarters is we're moving on to 201 product marketing versus 101. So that's where we're at now.
That resonate with the product managers. Wow, you did all that with a two-person, like you and Mark?
We were heavily involved in leadership. Obviously, we brought on, we worked with Fletch on the homepage and things like that, but and we had partners obviously on the sales deck, things like that. But as far as the marketing team, until we added Jillian, who's our amazing content marketer, it was just us two for a little while.
Wow, man. That's a lot, and that's incredible. I mean, it just goes right back to that rigor you were talking about earlier in execution. And a lot of, while you're explaining all that, I was thinking a lot of people would have just gone with the evidence content platform and been like, hey, I think that's pretty good. It gets a point across. Let's throw it out there and see how it does. A lot of people would have gone that route and just kind of, put it in the realm of testing and just let it ride for a little while. But I mean, going to shows like you said, and hearing a response from marketers being meh, it's in some ways it's nice selling into marketers too, because they're going to be honest, be pretty honest with you, I feel like. And they also know the struggle of marketing and messaging and how to position your product the right way and what's going to resonate too. Oh, that's so good. Well, I wanted to ask also, you said you worked with Fletch, and Fletch's and Anthony and Robert, their names have come up multiple times on this show, obviously this show being about messaging. But what was it like working with them? What was your experience like?
To me, working with them was a great example of how having someone else in the room can be valuable to get decisions made, or just to facilitate conversation. Because you can be stuck in your own biases between your leadership team, your CEO, your marketing team, whoever else. And we had both of our co-founders, me and Mark, in there to hash out the long discovery conversations about what are we trying to be to lead to the end deliverable, which is the homepage, working with them. But there was a ton of value in just we loved those discovery conversations, and being able to have someone help facilitate that and offer an unbiased opinion on things, or just ask questions and push us to give opinions back and forth. That was super helpful, because it's important as a product marketer, something I've been thinking through lately and learning is that like it's important that not every idea is your own when you're trying to get something done. When it comes to like execution, like you have to, if you can keep your ego out of the way and not have to be right or be the one to have the idea, there are many different ways to move forward, right, and get progress. And like having someone else bringing in help to not just back you up, but to like be another voice in the room or to share data or an opinion is extremely helpful in moving things forward. So it just got good conversation going that you just are not sure you'll always be able to have yourself. And like we have a great relationship with our co-founders. Obviously, they want to get involved in that project with us, which is great. Throughout the whole naming process, I was talking one-on-one with Evan, our CEO, and Ray, our co-founder, like just hashing through the ideas and talking through it, seeing what they think. So, but I honestly really enjoyed just being able to get that group in the room together and work through all of the ideas and hear all of the things that I can't think of that Evan and Ray can think of because they're co-founders. They've been in this world. They've been in this game. Yeah. You know, it's that classic, you're trying to pull stuff out of your CEO's mind that you can use that every marketer tries to do. And we're able to do that really well. And Anthony and team are great at that. Like they have their frameworks and systems and just ways of thinking about positioning and messaging that is super helpful to be able to converse with and talk around. So
yeah, I love that. Facilitate new questions, new ideas, takes the pressure off. I feel like a lot of times product marketers, we do put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be the idea person, to come with the new ideas, to be the one that it kind of sits on our shoulders. But a lot of times when you're having conversations, even with outside of marketing, with people who are not in the marketing team, they think about it in a different way or a different perspective. And sometimes I found that even putting messaging in front of someone who might not be like the core buyer of what you're trying to sell, and they're like, well, like I have an idea what you're doing, but I'm reading the sentence and it doesn't really make sense to me. Yeah. And it's like, that's like really solid feedback to get back. And another one I heard actually too was good people to get feedback from, especially messaging and copy wise, are people who English might not be their first language. Yep. I work with for an Israeli company, and I mean most of the people I work with speak Hebrew as their first language. And when I provide messaging out there and I get some feedback like, I actually don't know that phrase that you just said, or this word is not familiar with me. It's like, oh wow, that's actually good to know, because this messaging is going out across the US, Europe, and and Asia. So it's good to know, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't use that phrase.
Yeah, and it helps you push for simplicity, right? For like, sure. At the end of the day, that's what the best are doing, is able to communicate it simply. We're not here writing Pulitzer-winning novels. Nope. We're selling software. People got to know what we're talking about.
Yeah. But we say that, but it's not easy. It's not easy to do. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Agonizing.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite, I love, you can kind of see it behind me, but I love like old advertising. Yeah. And who was it? David Ogilvy. I have his book over there on the shelf. If you go through David on advertising is what it's called, and he kind of walks through his process for creating kind of these old school ads. And he used to go and interview just everyone within the company, customers, and he would do this for like weeks, if not months, and have tons and tons of conversations. And then the result would be like a 5-word sentence.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like, that took a lot of work, and it looks simple, but it's not.
No. It takes a lot to get there. 100%. And getting it that short is like the worst part.
Yeah, it is. It's like, oh, I really like this word, but it's not.
Yeah. Because if you give me a page, like, cool, I can get there. I can get my ideas down, but to get it to one sentence, brutal.
I love it. All right. So you talked about switching to customer evidence, and then you also a little bit earlier were talking about weaving in stories. So one of the questions I wanted to ask was, how do you effectively use customer stories in your messaging as the platform, as the creator?
We lead with it. So it's interesting because I wanted to take a look at our website to like check myself on like, How are we doing it? If you look at our homepage and you look at our persona pages, we lead with the customer front and center in the hero. No product shot to start off. It's a relevant quote on generally how we help, right? Like on the homepage, we want to focus on a name people will recognize and respect and an overall view of how UserEvidence is helping. But then we have specific, on our product marketing persona page, on our customer marketing persona page, we lead with that. And then when it's product time, we lead with product. But it's front and center, putting them first. That's, I think, the first key. And I think that's always more powerful, especially like on your homepage. People are coming to your site unless they're fully prepped to like know what you are. They're not going to know what they're looking at in a product screen right away. So that's a part of that education on the homepage, and that's a good way to start off strong. Because if I'm coming to a homepage for a product that I know nothing about, I would much rather see maybe a customer that I recognize company-wise or something about the value I can relate to right off the bat to get me going versus just seeing a picture of a software that has menus and I'm not going to take the time to parse that right away, right? Yeah. Unless you have the best little GIF for explanation that like actually does it, but I'm not sure I've seen that yet on a homepage. So that's like the first thing, front and center. And then we try and show off our customers' usage of our platform. That's one of the benefits of the type of software we have. But that's like a form of customer stories for us. So we have a link to like our customers' research libraries of all their customer evidence because it's published third-party research, right? That's a part of the value for us is we verify in our platform. And so you can trust it's real feedback from customers. And a lot of them choose to show that publicly. So a lot of what we're showing is actually, some of our best customers like Gong is their research, their stuff that they have. And we just use their work and just show their work, essentially. So that's a great way we do it as well. That is a bit specific to our platform, but if you can show what customers are doing, that's always an amazing way to do a story because it's just a use case. Yeah. But, we can always get better, and I want us to be the best because we're a customer evidence platform, right? So where I'm headed next with it, beyond like what we did when we first restructured the site, and also Mark getting us off to a good start with some of those frameworks, is I want us to build the best customer evidence program out there as UserEvidence. So I'm working hard on that now, moving forward, of like getting pretty sophisticated with what we do with our own use case, quantifying our value. Like we did all this research on the evidence gap. Now it's time to connect the evidence gap to the impact our product is having and truly get into some like ROI statistics and like value in those ways. And then going to be putting a lot of work into tactical content using that customer usage and just like building out a lot of education around that. So that's kind of like the next phase of where I want to go with it, because we want to be best in class in that.
I love it. All right. So it looks like you said showing the customer messaging front and center, mm-hmm. and then the customer usage, looking at those use cases, and then you're looking to build out the customer evidence program, quantify the ROI and the education, provide education off of that evidence program. I know as you were speaking, and you're kind of describing like using customer messaging front and center versus using product messaging front and center of like where you're showing and telling the product. That's a lot different than what most software companies are doing.
Yeah, the answer to everything is it depends. Some people could probably get away with it because everyone knows them, right? But I think we work in enterprise software. That's where we focus. We're up market. But with most software, we are a workflow tool that is just helping people change how they do a job or do a job better. And so I think it's important to lead with those people and like, who is this person and how are they helping me do this job? And like, that's just the base level of where to start. Of like, well, that's what your job in marketing is to do, is just show that. And so we're trying to do that right away. And like at its very simplest level, it looks like a person's face and a quote from hopefully a great logo, right? We always want a great logo, but hopefully it says something in the testimonial that speaks to what we're trying to get at from like a high level. And it all just kind of flows down from there. But yeah, I don't know. I also am a huge fan of just putting actual customers' faces as like everywhere you can on your website. That was something that ended up being a focus at Lessonly back when I was there and we were building. We even had one of our designers go out and photograph our customers who we could reach in person, so we could have, like, if they didn't have a headshot they loved or whatever, they went out and took photos of them. A lot harder as remote work becomes more prevalent. But all of that natural photography was all over the website and the marketing material, and it feels more real. Like, I really don't like base stock photography. Just being all over a site everywhere, because you can tell when it's not that person. But when it is actually a customer who's willing to have their face on your website, I think it hits home, because we all just want to, like, we all, as much as we hate saying it, like, we do fit into boxes, and we want to make sure when we're making an expensive purchase that we're making the right one. So we want to see people like us, people like us do things like this, is the classic quote. People like us buy things like this is the marketing version of that quote. And that's a mantra I've always tried to think through when I think through how I do product marketing.
Yep. I mean, yeah, it just in general in life, people gravitate to others that are kind of like them, kind of look like them a little bit. That's human nature. And you have to go outside your box to kind of break that a little bit. But you're right. I mean, especially in a buying situation, people, if you say you sell to a university, what are the logos and what are the people that, they're going to want to hear from? They're going to want to hear from other universities as well, not someone in the energy industry. They want it to resonate with them.
Yeah. Or aspirational companies, right? Like, it could be the company your customers want to become as well. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be them specifically in that moment, but you're trying to get here, they work with us, we'll help you become them or get there. So there's a couple different ways you can do that. But I love the aspirational piece as well.
Yeah.
Because, like, we have Gong at the top center of our homepage, right? Like, that's who it is.
It's huge, yeah.
And that's a name people know and has, like, blown up in the software world over the past several years, and has won a market and done a great job. So there's a piece there of, like, if the best in the business are doing it, you want to be a part of that. And so that's what it's our job to try and show. And I'm very lucky that we have amazing logos. That's a huge bonus, because it is harder without it.
It is harder. Yeah, I've been there. And it's like, well, do we have any logos? No, not yet. All right. Well, this is going to be a little more difficult than I thought.
For sure.
All right. So you put up a post on LinkedIn not too long ago, and it resonated with a lot of people, I think. And it was, you're talking about a messaging doc should be 2 pages or less. And I know we've had people on the show that actually give examples that are the opposite of that. So I think that'd be an interesting thing to talk about. What's your approach to building this messaging doc and how it actually gets read? I know that's a problem for a lot of product marketers.
For sure. And there was some interesting counter arguments in that thread that I appreciated. But my goal with that idea is that you just got to focus on what's important, and that doc is not necessarily the place for nuance. So I'm not arguing against nuance at all. Nuance is vital. But you need to get the team directionally right first before you dig into the nuances, right? And I do think it's more relevant for my position, right? We're in a younger company. We're figuring it out with every single call. So for me, getting us that 80% directionally right first, the first 80%, is much more important than focusing on the last 20% before they're ready. Because it's one of those things where if you have someone who's on a call and not just completely dialed and confident in the talk track or how to have that conversation with a prospect, if you're trying to introduce these little details that you want them to focus on, it's just going to mess everything else up, right? Because they're going to be so focused on trying to remember that one little nuance you gave them that they lose the plot on the larger thing. So we'd rather get someone that first 80% first and then dig in on the last 20% once we have that established. And I think it's just best to start with something 2 pages or less. The goal is simplicity there, to get that key points directionally right, and nail that. And then you move on to the 20% and the nuance, which is, you can wax eloquent on these ideas in live trainings. You can do one-on-one feedback, listen to sales calls, talk with the reps, get in there with them, right? So that's like, and I'm doing that now and love doing that. And there's a ton of nuance in that. And there's a lot of building documentation based on questions you get that you can do. But that core messaging document to me is still just like, here's the baseline of what we're doing that we will build the nuance off of that gets us there. And there's like a very clear counter argument to that, right? Where if you've got a super senior sales team or you're going into an existing company that has an extremely established message and practice, it's a different ballgame, right? You're not starting from scratch and building up. You are going to be probably diving straight into the nuance. So, it can depend on your situation where you're at. But especially for founding product marketers, for startup marketers who are coming in and establishing messaging, or if it is a big change in a company, right? If a company is pivoting or is coming out with new positioning, whatever that might be, I do think it's more worth your time to get people have those directional couple key points down, and then you can go off once you have that established to get the details.
That was awesome. You sold me on that idea. Nice job.
There we go.
No, it makes a lot of sense. You're talking about different company sizes and going directionally versus nuance, what to focus on. A lot of that nuance, like you said, can come across really well when you're speaking it out to someone else, because then you can kind of go into the detail a little bit. And also when you're speaking to someone, you might be able to show and speak at the same time. And if you think about how people learn, if they're listening and looking at something at the same time, that nuance might be able to be digested more than just looking at a 10-page document with size 10 font.
100%. And you can tell on a sales call when a person is stuck on their talk track to a T, even if someone is a prospect is telling them something that could lead them in a different direction or the right direction, but they're just stuck because they're trying to remember those details or trying to figure that out. So it's like, have those key pieces, and then you start getting into like, how do we have this conversation? And that's where it gets fun, because that's when the feedback starts flowing into the messaging and you change it and you're sharing new ideas and you're actually updating it. And it makes it easier to update, because you'll realize if a core piece of that is off, but usually, hopefully you've done the work that your key pieces are right. And it's all the nuances in there that you're dialing in. Does this specific problem work? Does how we say this work on a call conversationally? All of that stuff. So
how do you provide this like nuance type of feedback to someone who is in sales? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes when someone is in sales, maybe they have their talk track or they have the way that they like to speak to the customer. And then there's this person from marketing coming on who listened to my call behind the scenes, and now they're coming and telling me what to do. How do you handle that conversation?
Totally. My job is not to control how a salesperson interacts. Because like great salespeople, and we have some great ones at UserEvidence, they have their way of relating to prospects that is going to be different than others. They might have a different way to say something, but they know how to really make it work for them. I'm not here to nitpick on specific verbiage, on things like that. Again, we have some directional things. Like we have a few things like, don't say this on a call. Don't use these words to describe our platform, right? And we have all the reasoning why, and we get agreements on like, hey, this makes sense. It's not like here's the rule. It's hey, this is why we don't want you to do this. Can we all get on board? Getting agreements, right? But yeah, it's not my job to like control and make each salesperson the same. I just want to make sure that they like have the tools to get to the right place. And that's where I can really help, is like, I know our product really well and have different ideas for how to talk about a product. So for providing that feedback, like specifically how I do it is a lot of one-on-one. Loom is my best friend. I will say I need to get better at this because my looms are too long. But I do think that nuance, can help, right? Because it's, I am trying to dig into that last 10-20% that can really help lift you up and get you from good to great. So it is a lot of that one-on-one feedback, and then we can share things out with the team, whether it turns into a broader training for the rest of the team, turns into something we just share out, something I talk with the VP of sales about. But I've been in a phase where it's a lot of time and gong and nooks, and literally just listening and chatting with them. And your relationship is super important here because you'd have to ask them what they really think of me, but at least in the conversations that I am having, we have a great coachable team who's really receptive. I'm very lucky in that sense. But I'm also not coming at it like, here's what I'm telling you to do. There's a lot of conversation as well. It's like, hey, why did you say this? Or here's what I'm seeing, and here's another possible idea, but can you tell me where that came from or why you did it? And so it actually ends up being more of a conversation than just a telling. And that also helps me learn where they're coming from and what's happening or where we might have a gap. That helps us then get to a better state.
Yeah, that's really awesome feedback. Because it also loops to what you were saying earlier, and you're talking about the rally behind and how we've all been on that receiving end of getting feedback from someone you don't really know, and they don't really know you, and sometimes it can feel out of touch. But when you have that relationship, like we talked about earlier too, it makes it a little bit easier to come in and say, hey, have you thought about phrasing it this way? And I like how you said that as well in your response versus saying, hey, can you phrase it this way next time? That is like telling someone how to do it versus have you thought about it and making it open dialogue, open conversation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. Like we're on the same team. You know, I'm not trying to come in here and tell you what to do. Like my whole goal is just, I want you to hit quota as well, right? I want our marketing site to convert better. So I'm going to take that back with what I do as well. But yeah, it's all up, and there are ways to help. Like I hope I've established at this point that I am here to help everyone, right? And there's a lot of things you can do when you start a job to like get some quick wins on that front to do that. But my goal is that when I Slack someone and say, hey, I listened to a call, I have some thoughts, that they think, oh, sweet. Like, this is great. We usually have good conversations here. This is usually helpful. And they look forward to that versus like, oh, great. Here he comes just trying to tell me what to do. Because, yeah, that's absolutely not what I'm trying to do. So,
awesome. That's so good. So, all right. And the next thing I wanted to get into a little bit is around how you enable the sales team. But I feel like we talked about that a little bit here. You have the short kind of directional document or slides, whether it's, 2-page document or 2 slides that kind of go over the high level things for the sales team to cover. And then you talk through the nuance, which is, and you laid out a couple things that you do for that. It's, whether it's live trainings or one-on-one or gong calls or, just sharing it maybe through a Slack group or something like that. But do you have other ways that you help the sales team or enable the sales team to keep consistent messaging and narrative?
Yeah, there's a few points I would hit on, but it is a lot of the classic activities, right? I don't think the activities are necessarily innovative. But there's just a few pieces that I guess I have focused on when we were rolling out our messaging, and now that I'm trying to like dial it in, what I'm doing, and like that starts with the not making it too overwhelming, getting the broad strokes, getting that base down. And then as far as like really helping it hit home, we did the whole rollout training. That's the hour of Nuance and me talking through it all. We have a training in our LMS, right, that we have people go through as another way, or if if you see someone's off on something, you can reassign it and just have another way to get the information again. I'm giving that one-on-one feedback now, doing actual call listens. But then it's also get other people to help you, right? So I talk with our VP of sales or with our CEO and about the things that we're seeing and about things and I ask them for help on like, hey, here's some things I would love for you to help back me up on. Obviously, a part of that conversation is like them agreeing and us talking through that, okay, this is the right approach. But then I can know that, a sales leader is going to go into a private meeting with the sales team and back up what we're saying because we have agreed on it and like they know the reasoning for all of that. And so it's just another way, again, to help get the message across. That doesn't have to be me constantly knocking on their door. And then also different ways to back you up in terms of like showing good examples, Like reps that nail it, call that out and celebrate that, especially if a rep is blowing away their quota and they're doing a lot of the things that you agree with and like back up the messaging you're providing, whatever that might be. Like use that as an example. And they can be ones to help back that up if they're willing to talk about how it has helped them or why it works for them, right? Like the whole key is showing why it actually works, having a reason, never just saying something because you said so. But then that's where and that's why I struggled with that first question of like, I don't know that there is that one skill. Like I could nail a messaging statement and completely fail rolling it out. Or I could be an amazing enabler, but it could be the wrong message. And so there's kind of like, that's why, if you're in a larger company and you can focus on that one thing and then you have another great enabler, awesome. But when you're a one person show, you got to be able to figure out how to do it all in some way. So, in terms of like how to deliver training and how to organize it, but also different ways to get that message delivered and backed up. Those are a few things that I've worked on and come to mind for me.
Yeah, that's really good. So earlier you were talking a little bit about updating the UserEvidence website, and you kind of broke down different personas on the website as well. How do you tailor messaging for different buyer personas without losing that overall consistency or higher level message?
Yeah. There's a layer above each persona's specific focus, right? And like it's figuring out what that layer or that through line is that actually is like what the core message is, right? So we sell to marketers. Customer marketers and product marketers are two of the like best personas for us, best buyers, best users. And that's also probably good context for this whole conversation is I'm also lucky that I sell to my own role, right? Like when we talk about rigor, that gives me a massive step ahead as opposed to me selling to developers. There's a lot more legwork I would have to do to understand and be able to talk to. So a lot of the copy that we're able to do on the website and like things I'm able to help our sales team with is like, hey, I am a product marketer. I am our buyer, right? So let's just like put that cut and dry. It's an absolute advantage. But it also comes with its own pressure, right? Because I really need to freaking nail it. Or else I'm not going to look good. I have no excuse. But that's a tangent. But so yeah, it's the through line between those personas because even though we solve this general customer evidence issue, customer marketers do have different things they're thinking about, right? They may not be thinking about this specific product launch other than them getting asked for a case study to support it, or they may not be thinking about competitive enablement in the way a product marketer is. There's different ways. Just like a product marketer might not be thinking about advocacy, right? Just like a customer marketer might. So there are different pieces of the platforms that are more important, different ways, even though it's all under the umbrella. And you've got to just speak to that larger problem. For us, a way of doing that is the evidence gap, right? So we're naming this broader market trend and issue that affects all of these personas, but affects them in their own specific ways and is related to our product. And that makes it really easy. Just like, hey, there's this whole thing we can agree on that's a problem that is a part of what all of y'all do. But the way in which we can help you solve it is specific to your specific persona. And we're not going to go talk to a CMO the same way we're going to talk to a customer marketer in that way, right? Because they're worried about, but we're also not going to say we improve revenue as our messaging. So that through line, I think, is really important. And I think about our problems we solve in two areas, right? I call it market and marketer problem. And it's just workflow and outcome. It's just a way of saying that because it's clever because we sell to marketers. But market is like the outcome piece. Marketer is the day-to-day workflow piece. And all software is basically a workflow solution. I saw a post on LinkedIn, I forget who it was by, that said that recently. And it's absolutely right. Like we're changing how you do a job or making it easier. It's efficiencies. But the market problems, those outcomes we need to speak to, right? Related to customer evidence. Are deals stalling because you can't speak to this person specifically and show them that you serve people like them, right? Or is it the workflow of I spent a whole quarter going after one or two case studies and all this time is wasted because it got denied in legal at the last second? Or I just don't have time to do all these other things that would make me a more impactful marketer because I'm stuck trying to get this one case study done or this handful done per quarter. And there's different things you can speak to within those, right? But that also, those two things are kind of that through line we also connect the evidence gap through to speak to our personas. So I just think you need to find that thing that's like the layer or the whole bubble that your personas fit in related to your problem that you can then have the specific solutions for each one.
Yeah. Awesome breakdown. You guys really got it dialed in.
This is kind of like a rehashing of so many internal conversations of us just trying to talk it out and jam it out, and me like noodling on ideas or stuff like that. And I'm sure if we talk in 3 months that like some of these ideas will be completely changed, right? Or we'll have new ways of saying it. But so much of it has been like having an initial idea that's not the right word for something or not the way to say it. And then just continually repeating it or trying something new with it until something works out or something clicks or you put it aside. So yeah, these are all conversations that like Mark and I are us in the leadership team have had throughout the past 9 months since I joined.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to resonate a lot with the listeners as well, because I mean, most of the listeners are product marketers as well. So I think you're gonna hear that resonate. Maybe you'll get a DM of someone who's interested.
Hey, of course, that'd be great.
All right.
Won't hide from that.
No. All right, to wrap things up here a little bit, there's 3 questions that we ask everyone who comes on the show. The first one is, what's one piece of messaging advice that you would give to listeners that they can take away and implement tomorrow?
Yeah, it's a difficult one for me because of that first question's difficulty, right? Because it's like there's so many things involved with it. But I would key in on that feeling I talked about of like that gut tension when you kind of know it's surface level and you're not really there. Like really notice that feeling, because I think like we want to get away from stress as humans. We want to push that down and ignore it. But if you can learn to recognize it, that might be something to tell you when you need to keep digging. And digging could mean different things. It could mean getting it out and testing the message. It could mean having a conversation with your boss and just hashing it out and trying something new. Like I got very lucky because Mark and I have had a super honest relationship from the start. So I felt comfortable just being like going to him as we're in the final stages of this naming and being like, I'm not loving it. And like being willing to like just have that conversation is huge. Yeah. But yeah, pay attention to that like gut level. I think we know when we've done the work to make something good enough and to like make something we're proud of. So don't ignore that feeling if you're not quite there, and keep pushing from it.
That's a good one. I love that. A little bit more personal question here. If you could put it into a single sentence, what's living all about?
Just snag that one right in the end of the conversation. Living. Like when I think about that question, the first thing that comes to mind is just, everything outside of work, which is like super important. I'm plenty ambitious in my career. That's always been important for me, but I never want to be someone who is just known for their job as well. Or like, I'd never have wanted that to be my whole identity. And if anything, even though my ambition has not gone down, that is something that has gotten even like more important. Like actually like having things outside of work that I love. That's why I live where I live. That's why I like doing what I'm doing. Like it's all built into that. So I guess like that's what I think of when I think of in the context of this conversation, what's living all about. But if I had a quick quippy answer for it, it would just be like doing things, like do what you enjoy. Go like we talk about execution, like the only way you're going to do anything in life is by actually doing something. So if you're worried about a decision, if you want to try something, whether it's personal life or professional life, you're going to look back in 6 months and you're either going to have tried it or you're not. Yep. And like that's it at the end of the day, especially if it's something you're scared of. So I guess doing would be my one word answer to that, whether it's in work or out of work, because that's how we experience life. That's how I've enjoyed experiencing life.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Alex. That was awesome.
Thank you.
If listeners found what you shared valuable, what's one thing they can do to lift you up, and where can they find you?
If anything helped, it'd be cool to let me know. That would make me feel good. But that's it. That's honestly it. I appreciate a lot of the talk in the product marketing world. Like, I like that has been a groundswell that's growing, and there's more sharing going on in the community, and I've taken a ton from it. Just like a couple people like Jason Oakley works with us closely at UserEvidence, like, is amazing and has been amazing to learn from. There's so many other names I could name on that list, but just to keep that going generally would be the thing they could do to lift me up and all of us up, I guess, because I've gotten a ton from that.
Yeah, awesome. Alex, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. All right, bye-bye, everyone.